Now, have you studied Butler pretty closely?
No, I haven't.
Well,
Are you talking about like the event?
yes.
Okay, sure. And I've talked about it a lot. I feel like I know about as much as anybody else does that has paid attention to it and talked about it. But when you say study, I mean, I don't know that I have any higher fidelity on it than all the information that's publicly
Well, let
available.
me ask you this, and this
Yeah.
to me, I could be mistaken, but I've spent an inordinate amount of time looking at Butler. I've literally gotten my hands on everything I can read and watched every YouTube video and every news account. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on the venue and the events and the sequence and the timeline and the actors. Does the name Maxwell Urich mean anything to you?
It doesn't to me, but
All right. So, do you recall that there was a white van that was shown on the day of the assassination being towed away from the venue?
yeah, yeah.
That
There were two
van was,
vehicles.
I'm
There
sorry?
was a sedan. There were two vehicles. There was a sedan, there was a bike, and there was the van, from what I understand. So I guess two vehicles and a bike, from what I understand. But
That's right.
anyway,
Now,
yeah.
the bike conflicted on who owned it. Someone has claimed that it was their bike, and it seems credible, and I kind of have discounted the significance of the bike. I think there's a plausible explanation that someone rode that bike there that was just an innocent bystander and did not have any role in anything other than coming to the event. I could be wrong. It was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, and there was a backpack which was mysterious, and not fully answered to my satisfaction. But Maxwell York, that van was reported in the moment to have contained explosives and was being impounded. You could see on television it being taken away on a truck, a wrecker, and it is alleged to have been to be owned by Urich Munitions of Mesa, Arizona. Maxwell Urich is the son of the owner of Urich Explosives or Munitions. And Maxwell Urich has a very curious background. He, like the last guy, fought in the Ukraine. He's very young. He's approximate age of Thomas Matthew Crooks. He looks very similar to Matthew Crooks. The distinguishing characteristic is that in his ears, he had those big earrings, but he took them out. And so his ear healed, but it left a scar on his left ear. I have seen pictures, and I'll send you the link. You can go look. I'd be interested to know what you can conclude. But the body on the roof, the alleged assailant, appears to have a scar in his ear. Now, where it gets really freakish is that Maxwell Urich had reported ties with the CIA, who tried to recruit him, and he evidently did some work for the CIA after he was in the Ukraine or during the time he was in the Ukraine. I'm not sure exactly what or how, but there's some nexus there, supposedly. And to make matters more freakish, his parents filed a missing persons report on him on July the 14th. He evidently has not been seen or heard from since. He also is known to have been in Portland, Minneapolis, Atlanta, other sites of riots of 2019. This guy had a very curious background, has disappeared mysteriously, and there are those who believe that it may be his body that was on top of the AGR building. As I'm sitting here saying that, I feel like I run the risk of losing whatever little credibility I may have with you because it sounds preposterous. But I've watched the videos. I've seen the scar. He had a tattoo. You can see the body on the roof. Looks like, some people say it's dirt. It looks like it could be a tattoo. I don't know, but I just want to know, where is Maxwell Urich and what's the story?
It's interesting that your show is named Truth, because it's what you're seeking is one of the more elusive things.
Yeah.
And especially in a world where anything but the truth is what they tell you. It's a very hard thing to discern. And then if you do figure it out, they're going to gaslight you and tell you that you're wrong and that, you drew all the wrong conclusions and that you're just a fool and, nobody should listen to you and you're just a conspiracy theorist. I mean, that's how these things go. It's discredit and, make counter accusations and, and move on from there. So I don't know anything about that guy. I will say that everything that I saw originally with the Crooks shooting struck me as being a sponsored event, meaning that he was not a lone gunman. I think that's at this point fairly easy to confirm now that we know that he had encrypted bank accounts offshore, that he actually was apparently in touch with Routh, however you say his name, the guy that was the second attempted assassin. And Routh, as you know, was trying to recruit Taliban to fight in Palestine. He's got a Harris Biden bumper sticker on the back of his van and very outspoken about, supporting the war in Ukraine and supporting the Palestinian fight in Israel, which, those are wars and he's welcome to have his opinion and support whoever he wants. But obviously, when you try and kill the former leader of the free world, that's a line that nobody can take on either side. So, I think we're in very dangerous times, very, very, very dangerous times. And there absolutely will be more attempts against President Trump. I even heard today that, that there was a vehicle with explosives identified and found outside of the rally in New York that he's preparing to attend tonight. But then there was another announcement that came out and they said, oh, no, it's fine. It was just a training exercise for police, bomb sniffing dogs or something like that. Okay.
A training exercise on the day that President Trump is in New York.
The president was going to have a rally and, with
somehow that
30, 40, 50,000 people. That doesn't pass the sniff test to me. So at this point in time, if I was the head of President Trump's security, he would be anywhere but Mar-a-Lago. He would never go back to Mar-a-Lago. And he would be in hiding until he had events. And those things would be, we'd be talking about miles worth of security. And at this point, I don't know where the factions are. I don't think it's a tremendously large group of individuals that would need to be removed from power in order to actually get this country back on track and reset itself. But I do think there needs to be a thorough cleansing of the deep state, non-elected government bureaucracy, especially from middle management up across the board federally. And, that's obviously not going to happen without some major conflict here at home. I think that's what needs to be done. Elon Musk said it well when they started talking about him becoming the head of the whatever it was, accountability or efficiency commission, government efficiency, whatever it was. And he said, I think the patient would want to reject the treatment, or exactly what he said, the tough medicine that they're going to have to give the federal government. And as well, it should, because the federal government needs to be reined back in substantially. I've said for, my entire professional career that the federal government was already too big and that it was overreaching. And so everything from, post 9/11, the Patriot Act that's never gone away, everybody remembers, or at least old people like you and I remember what it was like before 9/11, and you could go, take your kids to the window at the terminal, or not the terminal, at the gate to go wave goodbye to mom as she leaves for her, weekend trip or whatever. And now, of course, nobody can access anything in the airports, and they've taken all the fun out of flying. And, it's I don't know what it is, but it's like the people that have the controls to the world right now just want to generally make everything kind of stink. And I don't know what their reasoning is for that, other than I think they're probably a bunch of collectively miserable people that have no faith in anything other than themselves as gods, and they will fall hard for that.
So, Adam, did I understand you to say that you think that there was a link between Crooks and Routh?
I've read that from at least one source, and I think that was probably Instagram, social media source. So how much stock do I put into that? But if you want to figure out what the nexus of this thing is, right?
Yes, so that's what we're going at.
Yeah. So let's say that they didn't have any connection at all. Okay, fine. But so then, are they two individual lone gunmen? Okay, maybe, right? Let's even go with.
That's a possibility.
Then let me ask, if they're the lone gunman, then why was Crooks able to get on top of the very roof that the Secret Service had its operations center inside of? He took his shots from the building, from what I understand, that was the headquarters presence of the law enforcement and Secret Service field headquarters at the Butler, Pennsylvania event. And so just that one question alone. And then we've all seen the videos of him walking around an hour before the shooting. We all know that he was known to authorities 3 hours prior when he went there, and he had a rangefinder and he was stopped by security. We've known that, that he was spotted on the roof, that they have got videos, people yelling, there he is, there's a gunman, go get him, protect the president, all these other things. Of course, no action was taken. So that in and of itself seems problematic in a lot of ways. But then you add the second attempt, and then the fact that golf outing from this last Saturday wasn't even on their itinerary. That was a last minute addition, just a split decision, or not, like a last minute decision by the president to take a round of golf that day. And so how did this guy, unless it's just the luckiest timing and placement ever, fly in, or I guess he didn't fly in, but he arrived sometime in the middle of the night, set up a position, had a rifle. His rifle's got serial number scraped off. He's got an advanced optic on it. He's able to have, another rangefinder, GoPro, other equipment, and know where the president was going to be hours later. How is that possible if this is not some kind of sponsored event? This guy has no ties to the administration. I have some ties to the administration in the sense of I have been in general contact with, Eric Trump and Lara Trump through, I speak on this tour sometimes, and I've seen and I've met them. So I'm closer to them than this guy could ever be. And I would have no idea what their itinerary or anything else would, because that family is completely locked down, and they should be. I mean, they should have, their inner sanctum security should be so tight. And my question is, why was President Trump allowed to even continue on that round of golf, when from second one, when they step off? I'm not going to draw the conclusion that I have in my mind, because I just don't want to say it, and I'm just not going to say it.
Well, you and I are coming at this with the same perspective. The things that are similar between Butler and the golf course on Sunday, and this is remarkable to me, is that both Crooks and Roth appeared in Black Rock commercials.
Yeah.
Now, that's just a coincidence. I mean, okay,
No,
if you
no,
say
it's
so,
not.
but it's striking to me and to others. The other thing with Crooks is that someone or persons allegedly visited his house, and
8 times.
Cell phone records tracking show that they went back to Gallery Place in Washington, which is kind of a government nexus of offices for the Secret Service and the FBI and others. So that's very curious. But the one thing that I think is the most striking, and to your point that it was a sponsored event, to me, the biggest, they call it a failure. I don't think it's a failure when it's intentional. But the
Correct.
perimeters were compromised in both
It's a
cases.
success then when it's intentional.
Yes.
It's not a failure then.
But if you draw a circle around Butler, and I've seen it, and anybody could draw it for themselves. The AGR building is cut out like a piece of pie. It is intentionally omitted from the circle of protection. So, and you couple that now with whistleblowers. I don't know that they're whistleblowers. They're local law enforcement officers who've come forward and said, we very intently told the Secret Service that we were concerned about the AGR building, and the Secret Service said, we will cover it.
Yeah.
Quote, end quote. But they didn't.
So this
and it
is
wasn't
one of those
casual conversation. Just 2 or 3
Right.
times they had that conversation.
Yeah. I've seen the videos too, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
I was just
that's
going to say on that note. So then it's like certain questions back. It's like, well, why wasn't the Secret Service there the morning of the briefing, for the morning briefing to talk who's going to be on what comms, if there's an emergency, who's going to take charge, where's the local law enforcement, lead law enforcement, what's the primary exit, the secondary exit, the third exit, if we're going to get them out here by helicopter, we're going to take them out by, you know what I mean? Like all of these are just the standard stuff that any security detail would look at, and they would say, wow, okay, there's a water tower over there, let's have somebody covering that. There's a slightly sloped roof that looks pretty dangerous, let's not put anybody on that. It's 150 yards away and it's slightly sloped, so there's no way that an assassin would go up there. So let's, they didn't cover that, which apparently was a little bit of an oversight on their part.
So the evidence is mounting up to be pretty significant that it is a sponsored event. Where's the accountability? I mean, the people in charge are not responding to sitting United States senators and congressmen.
Yeah.
And they're withholding information and they're not being transparent. How do we, for goodness sakes, we got the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah, it's as bad as it's ever been. And I would say, I don't think that those changes will be made willingly, the changes that you just talked about.
Well, my belief is that if Trump does get reelected, that he is going to have a lot of knowledge that he didn't have in his first term. He's going to have a lot of know-how that he lacked in his first term. He's going to have loyalists.
That there's a fair election.
There you go. There's the footnote. But I think the deep state knows that if Trump gets elected, their goose is cooked. He will come after them because of violations of the laws of our country and the laws of God. And they should be punished for that. And I'm not looking for retribution. I'm looking for accountability. I'm looking for the rule of law to take effect. So you think, last two questions, and you've been so generous with your time. And let me just say, Adam, I've met some people that worked in intelligence. You were one of the most candid and real people that I've had the pleasure of speaking to. And not only do I appreciate the sacrifices and the service that you made for our country, but I sincerely appreciate your coming on this air and speaking truthfully with me, as I believe that you have. So thank you for that. You think Mar-a-Lago is vulnerable. I live across the water from Mar-a-Lago. My wife walks our dogs. I guess I shouldn't say it on TV. She walks the dogs at midnight. And I said, Helen, you can't go out at midnight and walk the dogs. It's not safe. She said, are you kidding me? This is the safest place on earth. There is a boat with a machine gun on it in front of our house. There is a police car 2 blocks up, and there's a helicopter flying over. I'm so safe. Nobody's messing with me. Not to mention our not so friendly dogs if somebody cross-eyed looked at my wife. But so what are you suggesting where Mar-a-Lago is concerned?
I don't want to be hyperbolic on anything. And first off, I appreciate you saying that about my candidness and stuff. The truth of the matter is,
sincerely,
I don't care anymore. As far as I don't have anything to prove. I'm not putting up appearances. I'm not afraid of the devil, the powers that be, the principalities that are fighting us. I walk in truth and I walk with God. And, when my time is up, my time is up. So with regard to the risk profile to Mar-a-Lago, I say I would not have the president in Mar-a-Lago for the sole fact that the last attempt happened there, basically. It was at the golf course, but you've been there, where it is, where Mar-a-Lago is. And so there's that. And if this is a sponsored, let's say it's a foreign entity like Russia, China,
or Iran, which would be.
So let's say there's a major foreign entity involved. Let's say it's Zelensky in Ukraine, right? Let's whoever, pick your boogeyman, and let's say that they're the ones running the show. If it is a nation state level thing and they have missed twice, the third time I would think they're going to make sure they don't miss. That's why I'm saying all of Mar-a-Lago I would treat as a risk, a target, that a high profile target area at this point. I would say I don't know. I have no information about that.
Yeah,
I'm not stoke fear. I'm just saying if you think about this from just a basic if you're a kid playing the game of Risk, or, what are you going to do to take, that Central Asian country or South America? You know what I mean? It's like nation states do not have friends. They have interests. And right now, the United States is a paper tiger, and it's a very weak country from a leadership standpoint, from a direction standpoint, from a morality or a clarity of purpose or focus or function. All of those things are huge problems. I would not at all be surprised to see everyday American men and women having to stand up as we, the militia, and take this country back. I am not calling for that. I am saying that is the thing that is on my heart that scares me.
I think that we would be foolish to deny or not to observe that there is an undercurrent rising and building based on what you have said. And I don't want it either. And I think that there is an easier, more effective way. I've said on this program repeatedly, if the people that we're in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, the people who are listening to us there, every single one of you need to get 2 people and take them to the polls who are otherwise unlikely voters. I've got a guest coming on later in the show. He is a religious figure, and he works with the evangelicals, and he has told me that there are 90 million Christians in America, and only 50 million of them go to the polls. 40 million Christians would make the difference in the election. We don't have to have a civil war. We just need a citizens' revolt. And that revolt can take place on November the 5th, 2024, by every single one of us doing our civic duty, getting to the polls, and taking 2 people with us. We can solve it in 5 weeks.
Well, so on that note, I'll just tell you the best part that I see. So if you look at just look at the overt support at the candidates' rallies. So President Trump, what his rallies look like versus what we're told Vice President Harris's rallies look like. So I think there is overwhelming support for the cause of freedom at this point. But as Stalin said, I don't care who votes or how many votes are cast. I only care who counts the votes. That is the factor that we must protect against.
Well, I've worked on a lawsuit against the Fulton Board of Elections for 2.5 years after 2020. I can tell you,
nothing to see there.
I'm sorry?
I said, there's nothing to see there.
Oh, yeah, other than 40,000 illegal votes in Fulton County and 400,000 in the state. It is a disaster. And Raffensperger and Kemp and Carr, they all cover it up. They're not doing their job, and I don't know what's motivating them. So I am as concerned as you are. The conventional wisdom is if Trump wins by 6 or 7, that's a magnitude that they can't cheat and overcome. We can only pray and do our parts.
Yeah, Jesus is going to have to show up for this one, and Trump is going to have to win so big that there's literally no denying it. That is the only, in my opinion, that's the only way for a peaceful transition. I don't see a peaceful transition of power happening if it is contentious. And so I don't want anybody in your audience taking that I'm inciting something. I'm making an observation. What I think, correlation and causality, basically. I think, if this begets that, then that will beget that. That's what we're talking about.
Well, there was a little bit of an undercurrent 6 months ago that they had tried everything else, that there was nothing else left except assassination. That became a reality. I did not want to believe it. I didn't want to accept it, but I intellectually realized the potential. And now we have had 2 brushes with a disaster. Now I'm hearing that same kind of undercurrent. I have a lot of conversations every day. My personal trainer, the person that cuts my hair, my hygienist at the dental office, they're all saying the same thing, that this country is a powder keg and it wouldn't take much to ignite it. And we've got to figure out a way to avoid civil unrest. And if we could just get people to go about their civic duty, and if we could all join hands and just say, look, you're not going to get everything you want. I'm not going to get everything I want. Let's let the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the laws of the land direct us in how we behave and what we're going to do, and we accept the results of an honest, fair election. Everybody wins. What's the matter with that?
I think that sounds great. It's a little bit
naive,
fairy tale, but it's I love it. But it's it feels good. Let's just leave it at that.
Well,
It
we'll
feels
bring back George Floyd.
good.
Can't we all just get along?
Well, yeah. So real quick, and I know that we're short on time, but so they always talk about how the alt-right, the MAGA movement, the Patriots, they're all a bunch of right-wing extremists, white supremacists, blah blah blah. Whatever, racist, homophobes. Use your descriptor. When President Trump was almost assassinated in Pennsylvania, not one person fled from the audience.
Yeah.
Think about that. In a stampede situation, which would have been a stampede situation anywhere else on the planet, that happened at a rock concert, stampede. That happens at any other football event, rally, baseball game, stampede. Going to be a stampede. Nobody moved. And then also, what was the retaliation by the right for that? Nothing. What was the retaliation for the second assassination? Nothing. They say that we're the big threat to democracy and everything else. Well, first of all, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. But not to confuse the issue, I would say that the people who are a threat to those things are the ones that are trying to imprison political rivals, the ones who are burning down American cities, who are importing illegal immigrants at a rate never seen before on the planet, and the ones who are intent on destroying the financial future and retirement prospects for all Americans in favor of exporting all of our wealth and giving it to foreigners.
Well, you might want to add participating in what I am beginning to believe is massive child trafficking, which is the worst sin that anyone can commit on God's green earth.
I believe at this point that the problem is every bit as bad as we fear it is.
Adam Hardage, thank you so much for coming on The Truth. It is a pleasure. You're welcome back anytime. I hope that you will come back soon and often. And if you're ever in West Palm Beach, I'd love to break bread with you and get to meet you in person.
Yes, sir.
So thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for your time today.
Look forward to the next time, John. Thank you.